Okay. So this evening session, we'll get into the breathing first because maybe we need this after the week that we have had. And then we'll get, then we'll dive back into the pose analysis, but maybe we'll end the session with another just little grounding breath work so that you go into the evening and the weekend feeling a little bit more calm. So we can kind of put all the, all the notes and the questions to the side for the sequencing. We'll chat about that later. And we're going to start with a bit of a grounding practice just to ease us into our breath work. So we'll try to blend up. It's really a short session. We've got about an hour and a half. So we really just get to skim over breath work and look a little bit at theory and practice, as well as some tips that focus on you as a teacher. So it's all great that we know these different breath works, but once again, how do we teach them? What do we teach? Which are good ones to use? And then later we'll chat a bit about maybe breathing practices you like, how you feel, which ones you feel comfortable with, and take it from there. So get comfortable as you are. I don't mind if you want to lie down. It's probably only be about 5 or so minutes. Lie down or seated, but I want you to feel, if it's possible, to have your back supported. So in this one, we've actually got a little bit of a backrest up against the wall. If you're very comfortable sitting upright for extended periods of time, that's also perfectly all right. If you're sitting on the floor, you can cross your legs or on a prop. If you're sitting on a chair, I want you to have your feet grounded. So if your feet are elevated, you might want to prop something, or it's kind of working with ergonomics there, but make sure that you have points of contact with the floor, and then your sitting bones with the chair, your back against the backrest or a wall, and then just give a nice shrug of the shoulders up, back, and down. Let the shoulders release down from the ears, and the hands can rest wherever they land, whether it be on the knees, the thighs, and then close your eyes. We'll start with the cleansing breath. So in your own time, you'll take a nice inhale through the nose and a big sigh through the mouth. Give another 1 or 2 like that. Feel the release of the week that has passed, the day that has passed. Most of you are muted, so you can really just let it go, whether it comes out as sound or it comes out as breath. And then after the next round or so, seal the lips, keep the lips closed. Continue breathing in and out through the nose. So we're not changing the breath. We're not trying to alter it or change its current state. With the eyes closed, simply notice the breath. Observe how your breath feels on this Friday evening, the 5th of March at 5 p.m. Notice the quality of your breath. And sometimes when we say that, we immediately want to change or alter it. So there's no right way or wrong way to be. I want you to just observe the nuances and the detail of your breath. Notice where the breath may be flowing freely and where it may feel a bit sticky. Notice where you feel the breath. Is it in your chest, your shoulders, your belly? You may feel it in any other part of your body, and just notice, where do you feel your breath show up this evening? And then bringing awareness to the inhales and the exhales. See whether one may be longer than the other, Maybe one's getting a little bit more attention than the other. Does the quality of each of them feel the same or different? At any time, if you need to breathe out through the mouth or adjust, do what feels natural. Just let your body flow where it wants to go. And now I want you to just bring your awareness to your inhales. The exhales will happen. We won't let them stop from happening. But you'll focus in on the process of the inhale. And then exhale naturally without much thought or focus. So when you inhale, notice the temperature of the air as it enters through the nostrils. Begin to notice how the air fills through the lungs. The expansion of the rib cage to allow for the increased volume of air. Notice that point where the inhale becomes the exhale and the gentle pause between the two. As you exhale, the rib cage lowers, the diaphragm relaxes, moves back upwards, and the air moves out of the lungs, out through the nose, and maybe observing the temperature of the exhale breath, whether it's different or the same, or maybe unnoticeable. We'll move through that inhale-exhale process once again. Continue to breathe as is. Maybe you have found as we have moved through this process that the breathing rate has naturally slowed. It may feel longer and deeper. It also may not, and that's okay. We'll move through the process of the in and exhale. And as I talk, you might notice some things, you might not, but just listen and see if you can feel it as it's happening in your body. When you inhale, the internal intercostal muscles relax, and the external intercostal muscles contract, pulling the rib cage upwards and outwards. The diaphragm contracts, pulling downwards, creating space as the lung volume increases, filling the lungs. And then as you exhale, the external intercostal muscles relax, the internals contract, pulling the rib cage down and inwards as the diaphragm relaxes. The lung volume decreases as the air flows out. On your next in-breath, take a nice full breath all the way at the top. Fill the capacity of lungs to the brim. And create a nice slow exhale. You might have to bring a little bit of resistance. So you're really slowing that down. Take one more full inhale all the way. And exhale. Good. Bring your hands to the front of you. Gently start to rub the palms together. Create a little bit of heat, a little bit of movement, a little bit of temperature. I said that twice. I meant to say temperature and texture. It doesn't matter, same thing. And then with the eyes closed, bring the palms over the eyes and then just feel the heat between the palms radiate towards the eyes. If it's been a long week, just take this moment to massage the forehead and the temples. A little bit of self-love never hurt nobody. Maybe down the face, the jaw, relax the cheeks. And if you'd really like to indulge, just move the hands down to the back of the neck. If you've been clenching your shoulders all week, now's the time to let that go. And then let the hands slide down all the way down, placing the hands over your rib cage. So your fingers will face inwards, almost as if they're in line with your rib cage. And then we'll just take 3 breaths here. And I want you to feel if you can't only breathe into the front, but breathe into the sides and the back body, all right? So you can choose to have the thumbs on the front. You can choose to have your thumbs along the side. It doesn't matter. Eyes closed, eyes open is okay. I encourage eyes closed just simply because when we close the eyes, we can draw more sensation inwards. So on your next inhale, breathe deep into the space where the fingertips are lying. Breathe the belly away from the spine into the sides of the body. And then exhale nice and slowly. Do the same thing, maybe feeling into the back body. Can you expand in a 360-degree motion? And exhale. 2 more times. On your inhale, can you sip in a little bit more air? You only go as far as what your body feels comfortable with. You see if there's more expansion. And you exhale with the same amount of control and ease. The next breath is your choice. Exhale through nose or mouth. Good. Release your hands. Gently blink open the eyes. And take a moment to center ourselves here. How are we feeling? Let's check in and see how, if you were feeling something before, did the breathing change? Did it not change anything? Let's get a little bit of feedback. Doesn't have to be anything major, just something simple. Was it nice? Was it not nice? All of those kind of juicy bits.
It's really nice. I feel super relaxed.
Cool. Amazing. So that was 10 minutes. All right. It's quite a long period. I mean, you can definitely feel the effects of breathing without doing something as long. Thanks, Alice. Alice gives a thumbs up. But it was a little bit longer. Does anyone else have something that they want to share? Elaine?
Yeah, just like much clearer and grounded. Like even my vision just feels clearer and calm.
Exactly.
Lovely, thank you.
So breathing, yes. Sinead, you share first.
Sorry, that was a bit late. I was getting so like mesmerized by my breathing that I was getting dizzy with my eyes closed, like having my head up. I had to open them a little bit at a stage because my head really was feeling quite wobbly on my neck.
That's fine. So I've had students before, not so much in seated meditations of sort, but sometimes closing the eyes can make students feel a little bit dizzy. I had someone the other day in a class when they were in Shavasana said, "Oh, I feel like I'm spinning." And so opening the eyes is perfectly fine. The closing of the eyes is really just, for me personally, helps me draw the awareness inwards. I find my eyes don't get distracted by things in the environment, but sometimes just a soft gaze down or even eyes open and keeping a clear focal point is completely fine. And in your case, if that was happening in a class, you might encourage someone to lie down or change their position, because the impacts or the effects of breathing are, although somewhat generalized, they can be be really differently experienced by different students. And so even when teaching breathwork or pranayama, we do somewhat tread quite lightly, because as we've seen in such a short period of time, breathwork is powerful, right? It has a major impact on our body and our nervous system. And so we're teachers, we maybe know, or we kind of anticipate the effect that it should have, or we know how we're supposed to feel. But for some students, they might have some adverse reactions. So we do want to bear that in mind. So anyone else want to share before we move into a little bit of theory, a little bit of practice? Good. Okay, so we know breath work is pranayama in Sanskrit. So prana relates or translates rather to energy. It's more than just energy. It's like your life force, all right? And so energy is, oh, you guys have done a bit of philosophy. You've done a little bit of prana that circulates through the nadis in the body. So it's that energy that not only exists within us, it's energy that exists in the universe, all right? Ayama, so it's, I've been doing a Sanskrit course, so I've really gone into the nitty gritties of the two and when they combine. So it's, sometimes people say prana and yama, but there's actually two A's. So it's prana and ayama, fun fact of the day, which is to stress or to stretch rather, or to draw out. Okay, so sometimes we'll hear that pranayama is control of the breath, and you do definitely get breathing techniques which are about gaining control of the breath, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It's about stretching it out, drawing it out, and through breath work or breathing techniques, we circulate energy through the body. Okay, so that's essentially just where the name comes from. We've gone very briefly, we don't really have to go into physiology 101 with breath work, but just from that exercise, we see, okay, great, what happens with the intercostals, with the inhale, you slowly get, and I kept on getting the two confused, so I didn't want to say this wrong, so I made notes for myself. But once again, it's not something that we necessarily need to know, because it's not that we'll teach it this way in a class. You can definitely teach breath work with the flow in and out. It becomes almost like a somatic marker. So the student becomes more mindful in following that breath in and out. And it's simply a tool to bring more mindfulness to the self, okay? But we all, just from going through that inhale and exhale, do we understand the basic biomechanics of breathing? Did anyone do biology in school where it was like you were in grade 5, I think it was? Yes. And then you would say, okay, inhale is inspiration. And then you would get the intercostals, the external intercostals would contract, and then the diaphragm moves down. And then because there's now more space here, the air pressure decreases, and that's why air flows into the lungs, okay? So it's almost like that happens, and then the air flows in, then you get the cellular kind of osmosis, and the air goes into the lungs and the body and moves all around, and then you exhale. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty of that. I did find some really cute videos on YouTube where they've kind of made like diagrams for kids. So if you want to brush over that general process, you definitely can. However, we just know as teachers, we are instructing students to breathe, okay? We make shapes, we instruct their body in certain ways, and we tell them to breathe. Okay, so it's actually a really big component of our yoga practice. And from some of your teaching practical feedback, some of you said, I didn't cue breath and I don't know how, and I get confused. And I actually want to chat about that here now, because the important role that we play as a teacher is we either cue it or we teach it, or we just simply remind and encourage them to breathe. Okay, and it kind of happens in stages. The more comfortable you become with your breathwork practice, and the more comfortable you become in teaching the breathwork. Okay, any questions on the breathing 101? No, we seem pretty fine with that. I kind of skimmed over it because I didn't want to fret too much about that. It makes sense. So if we look at the average breath rate, they say 10 to 20 per minute. All right, which is really a very vast difference in average. Okay, it's almost double. You're either taking 10 or 20 or somewhere in between. So everyone's breathing practice or natural breathing rate is incredibly different. Have you ever sat next to someone and you say, oh, you're breathing fast, and that might be normal for them? And as you practice more yoga, you might have noticed, and maybe you guys can let me know, have you noticed that your breathing is naturally slower than people around you? Has anyone picked that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And in a way, our yoga practice or encouraging mindfulness on our breath by slowing it down, and it's actually just awareness, because we are linking movements to breath work. So we really kind of hone in on that mindful component of it. We're so aware of when we're breathing fast or when the breath is somewhat disrupted. So it really is a nice tool that it doesn't just happen on the mat. It really is powerful to carry outside, just as you would have seen now for anyone having a stressful situation. This little short 5 to 10 minute technique could be incredibly powerful, calming the nervous system, grounding you into the present moment. So very great mindfulness tip for bringing the awareness away from everything else and back to center into the here and now. And then to continue with what you're doing, coming from who said clarity? Elaine, you said clarity. So kind of reducing that brain fog, that busyness, that distraction, grounding and moving forward from here. Okay, so that's more in a regular life setting. Okay, so I want to go into a tiny touch of theory, and then I want us to practice a lot of breathing techniques. So I am going to kind of talk through it somewhat a little bit faster, because there's really only one portion I want you guys to focus on, and it's more just about the why, as to why we do breathing, or and how breathing really works, or what does it do to the body? Why are we feeling this way? Okay, you guys have touched on a little bit of the nervous system. Okay, how are we feeling with our understanding of the nervous system? I'm going to draw you guys a virtual picture, and if that somewhat gets confusing, I'm going to pull it up with my screen, but I enjoy seeing all of you here. So we know we've got eye breaking up.
Yeah.
Oh no, is it bad? A little bit. Okay, let's see if it persists. I don't know why. It's fine. Let's see how it goes. Otherwise, I might just turn my video off and see how that goes and see you guys. Okay, so we know we've got our central nervous system, which is our spinal cord and our brain. And then we've got our peripheral nervous system, which branches out to the extremities. Okay, I'm actually going to pull this picture up because I think it's only going to do us all a favor. Present. Okay. All right. So peripheral nervous system, that's the one we've just spoken now on the side. From there, you get your somatic nervous system, which is involved a lot with your skeletal system. And then you get autonomic. Okay. So autonomic really plays a role in our automatic functioning. Okay, it's your sleep, your hormone production, it's your digestion, all of those things that we don't really have control over. It happens anyway. Okay, and then under our autonomic nervous system, we get sympathetic and parasympathetic. Now, I'm sure these terms are ringing a bell. If you haven't done them with Monique, did Monique bring it up in the previous session, or I thought she'd maybe bring it up in the next one? Aha, okay. So this is very much linked to the work that you're going to do with Monique with meditation and mindfulness, because both of them are also tools that we use in order to stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system. So a little run through if we can't quite remember, but the sympathetic nervous system, that is our fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, so if we think back to when, hundreds, thousands, lots of years ago, we can imagine that our sympathetic system or our sympathetic nervous system will kick in when we were in perceived danger. It's all about survival, okay? That's what's going to kick in when I need to run away from a bear, or a tree is going to fall on me, or I'm getting into a car crash. As soon as we are threatened or we feel like we're in danger, the sympathetic kicks in. Our pupils dilate, our blood flow and oxygen flow goes away from our digestive system. It goes straight to our muscles because we need to move. We need to do something. Adrenaline and cortisol kicks in and the body is ready to go, okay? Those are the kind of internal physiological symptoms that will happen if we are fighting, if we're running away, or for some of us, it's freezing. you're frozen, but you're still super panicky. Maybe some of you guys can relate if you were in this phase a lot this week, right? And that's fine, okay? It happens to us. We need a certain level of sympathetic nervous system and stress in order to get going. What's going to get you out of bed? What's going to get you to finish your pose analysis assignments? We need a certain amount of stress in order to keep going. Okay, it's kind of like that bell curve. All right, the optimum amount of stress is going to keep you doing what you need to do. All right, unfortunately, we spend a lot of time in this state. Okay, stress, anxiety, frustration, anger. We spend a little bit more time in this phase, especially more so now where we're living busy lives, doing more, getting more done. It's a lot of demands and we feel the need to do. So we stay a lot in this state. Where parasympathetic, on the other hand, is our rest and digest, kind of what brings us down to homeostasis, all right? And although we've said that our nervous system is automatic, of course it is. You're not saying, oh, I'm going to be, it just happens, right? It's like automatic. It's just something triggers and you go from there. Some perceived threat, saying that because our perception makes a big difference. You guys watched that video. No, I'll relate to it later. Otherwise I'll confuse you. But the parasympathetic system, although it is automatic, we can use certain tools to stimulate this, to bring us back into our rest and digest. As you guys would have seen, breath work is one of them. It's one of many, okay? Are we all with us on the nervous system? No questions on this? Good. This is also like nervous system 102. Okay, so just a little run through their sympathetic nervous system, primal survival response, responding to danger, stress, and anxiety. Those are all the physiological symptoms that will happen there. Heart rate, lungs expand, adrenaline, cortisol, you move into your muscular system, it's go. Parasympathetic, resting, it focuses on your immune system and your digestive system. So this is the state that we're in when we are resting, sleeping, sometimes even doing something that you love, like swimming or walking. You can, even though we might be moving or doing something, you can definitely be in this space, okay? Or in this state rather. And your pupil size is back to normal. Your heart and breath rate lowers. Everything's nice and slow and calm and lovely. This is the state we want to be in. Hopefully we're doing yoga in this state. It's actually quite interesting because a lot of yoga, especially when we're practicing, it can be sympathetic, but we've got our nice shavasana at the end to regulate, bring us back and enjoy. Okay. Now, this cool picture on the left here, you can see the picture from the brain and you see the parasympathetic nerves, all right? Do you see that the nerves originate from the brainstem as well as the base of the spine, okay? There's very few nerves, all right? Where the sympathetic, look how many pathways there are. There's so many nerves that are kicking into that sympathetic nervous system because we need it to act faster. We don't have time for that nerve to get all the way down and whatever. It needs to happen quicker, okay? So that reaction is usually quite fast and quite immediate, where sympathetic is a lot slower. But this is quite interesting to note because it's going to lead us into a topic that I'm really loving right now. And I just find it really quite interesting. And I hope I'm getting like so excited. I hope you guys are like, yes, vagus nerve, so exciting. Okay, yeah, Nicole's like, vagus nerve. All right. So the vagus nerve is, have you guys heard of the vagus nerve? Let's quickly, a show of hands, who's heard of the vagus nerve? I'm freezing. Is my signal really bad, guys? Are you hearing like every second word? No? Okay, cool. You guys first. Sorry, just by show of hands again, if you've heard of the vagus nerve? Okay, cool. A couple. Awesome. If you haven't, man, I'm going to make your day. Okay. So the vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerves, okay? We've got 12 cranial nerves that originate in the brain. Okay, cranial, brain, nerves that run from there. Now, this vagus nerve is quite a powerful little nerve. I say little, but he's not that little. He's actually the longest of the cranial nerves. He starts in the brainstem, goes all the way down through all the vital organs like your lungs, all of that little kind of like travels a nice path all the way through the body, and it ends in the gut. And so it's a really nice communication between kind of your brain and your second brain, your brain and your gut. And because it moves through all the important parts of the body, it plays quite a significant role, especially that in, would the right word be, not stimulating, it plays an important role in our parasympathetic nervous system, in that when we stimulate the vagus nerve, when we do certain techniques that contribute to what you call vagal tone, then that toning is what gets us into the parasympathetic nervous system state, okay? So it's pretty much what they call the relaxation response. And so this little nerve is actually quite important and quite nice to remember. And I actually did a really cool workshop on the vagus nerve where we worked through different ways in which we can stimulate this nerve. The one, breath work, simple breath awareness, especially with the focus being on the exhale. So what we know is that the exhale is often linked to our parasympathetic nervous system, and the inhale is linked to our sympathetic. Okay, we'll understand that a lot more when we get into our different breathing exercises. Other ways to stimulate the vagus nerve, because it runs through throat, is singing, humming, chanting, also something we can do in yoga. And it doesn't necessarily need to be chanting. It can just be and we'll do a breathing technique later, which I'll try and get you guys to turn your audio on. We'll see how it goes. But we also create sound, all right? We know a lot of our breath work, we actually work with a lot in the throat. Think about your Ujjayi breath, where you're creating a little bit of a soft constriction here, or bumblebee breath that we'll do later. We can bring that in breath work as well. And then also meditation. So just awareness to present moment, observing thoughts, sitting quietly, sitting still, and just observing those fluctuations of the mind. There are a couple of additional other ways. One of them is tapping. More doesn't really fall, don't really fall into the category of yoga, so I haven't put them in there. But just know that there are some other techniques that you can do, chanting, mantras, all of those kind of things. Asana is also pretty powerful, mostly your restorative yin based, which we've saved all that goodness for the end of the course, because we've learned that yin yoga at the end is what everyone needs. Okay. The next kind of slide I actually really like, where they were talking about why breathing techniques work. So yes, we've looked at the physiology. We understand, yes, it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system and the vagus nerve. And maybe you want to go into all that detail when you teach yoga, but also it's got a psychological component. So as you guys have experienced now, yes, we were doing all of that internal stuff was happening automatically. But simply by bringing awareness to the breath, we start to cultivate a mindfulness practice. So we divert our awareness from the thoughts. They might still try to come in and try to call for your attention and say, hey, I'm here, remember me, do this, what about that? But you're going, no, I noticed that, but I'm actually noticing my breath right now, and I'm giving my breath my full focus. So it can actually be a point of focus for meditation, which is a really nice segue into meditation for our students. So by bringing awareness to the body, sometimes you can use something to focus on, but it's really nice to start on yourself. Okay, so I want you to just put a little pin in that and just take note of that breath work is a nice entry into meditation. At least I felt that way. I think you guys can share and let me know whether that is something, whether that's something that was the same for you when you started meditating, is to start with the mindfulness practice on the breath. Did you guys feel that? Maybe you felt otherwise? No one. Well, maybe we'll feel it now. That's okay. I've found particularly, and not so much in my own practice, but when I started teaching, is that when I would get students into Shavasana, the first thing that I like doing is notice your breath. When you come onto your mat, notice your breath, okay? Brings you, just like we did, it takes you away from there and brings you here. So really great way to start a class, really great way to end a class. And through the class, we can do a couple of different things, okay? Let me just read the chat here. Yes, so it really works well as a focal point. So if we look at the 8 limbs of yoga, which you guys have looked at in your philosophy, maybe you've watched the videos, maybe you haven't, that's okay. But we know that pranayama comes after asana. So it's actually the 4th limb. So I have actually been in classes before where the teachers don't teach any specific pranayama because of the intense reaction it can have on your body. We may think, oh, this is incredibly calming, but for someone else, it can be incredibly anxiety provoking. And I think we need to be quite, I wouldn't say cautious. I don't think we need to be fearful of it. We need to be aware. We just need to know, okay, students can experience this in different ways. So the approach that I like today to take is more one of empowering students to develop a mindful breath practice on their own. Okay, so I'm kind of letting them fly their plane. That's what one of my teachers, Carla, said, and she to teach us yin, is that I'm here to teach you how to fly your own plane. I don't want to fly your plane for you. Let's empower you to notice your breath, observe it, and give prompts that encourage them to do something if it's something that they want to do and if they feel comfortable doing that. Okay, does that make sense? Definitely, breath work's amazing and powerful, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of a check-in to see how many different types of breath works we have done in a class and what our reactions were to them. Because we'll see they're all different. There's no right or wrong way, just like no posture is good, no breath work is like good or bad, no breath work is good or bad without considering the person doing the breath work. Okay, and that's a nice thing to remember when we start teaching, because we sometimes go and then we're really excited to do all these breathing things and they can be really, really intense. Okay, so what we did first was simple breath observation. So noticing the breath is what I would say is a good starting point. So before I can change or alter or affect my inhales and exhales, can I just notice what it's doing already? Okay, so kind of using somatic cues or questions that invoke curiosity in your students. What does your breath feel like? Does it feel free and flowy? Does it feel a bit stuck or sticky? Where do you feel your breath? What's the texture? What's the temperature? All questions that we will definitely also use in a mindfulness practice when we're starting to take awareness out of the body and maybe to things in your awareness, in your area, but you definitely start to bring that back to the self. So there were another questions here that I just wanted to remember. One of the words that I actually really like is a lot of teachers use it, and I think, what is the quality of your breath? And I love asking that because I think the more that we start to develop a breath work practice, we know, okay, this is what my breath feels like. Ooh, it feels good today, but not necessarily at the same time labeling it as good or bad. So I often use that as a cue when I teach students to say, no answer is right, no answer is wrong, nothing's good, nothing's bad. So can I approach this awareness without judgment? Okay. Once again, mindfulness is awareness on the present moment as it is without judgment. Okay. So we don't want students there going, oh my gosh, my breath feels a bit stuck. I am a horrible yoga practitioner. I'm out. So it's invoking or questioning that non-judgment, I have found is to be really, really helpful. And just to say, it is what it is. Okay. And I read this quote, which actually so perfectly instilled that. So I'm going to read it to you guys. But it says, pranayama begins with awareness of the breath. This means witnessing the breath both as it is and as it inherently wants to be, while setting aside any and all efforts to control it. It is being absolutely attentive to all the movements and the sensations subtly associated with the breath. So if there's anything you take home today, hopefully more than one thing, but it really is breath awareness. So just like we started the class, that is a nice way to do that, and letting students draw their attention inwards. And then when we come to the center bit of the class, which you guys would have experienced in your teaching practicals, all we need to do is remind our students to breathe. Okay. With time, you will definitely become more comfortable, if you want to to cue inhales and exhales. But I'd like to just draw your awareness back to the first class you did as a beginner, and your teacher was going inhale, exhale, and you're going, and your timing and the teacher's timing is just not there. It really takes time to cultivate a practice that is linking body to breath or movement to breath. That really takes time because everyone's got different breathing patterns. So you might find in doing that some students are holding their breath, or I mean, most of the time they're taking a lot extra little sips in between, which is fine. So you can definitely at sections of the in your sequences use breathing. So general ways for that is like inhale, extend your arms up. Exhale, drop hand down, side stretch. Inhale, arms up. But you can also take that out if you want, you could, and it would still have the same impact because you're still encouraging them to breathe on their terms with movement. With time, they'll come together. Okay. So essentially what I wanted to say is that there's no right or wrong way to do it. Okay.